Arabic is a tricky language, but despite that, I managed to score a first class or the highest grade in every Arabic language paper I took at Cambridge University. And I don't think it was luck. From all my years studying Arabic, I want to share 3 things that most benefited me and I think can supercharge your Arabic learning journey. And if you get right, will make a huge difference. Ahlan ya ashabi, hi friends, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Qasim. I studied Arabic and Persian at Cambridge. And on this channel, I break down how to learn Arabic efficiently and effectively for beginners. I've learned loads of languages and I want to help you on your own language learning journey. So if you're interested in learning or improving your Arabic so that you can understand the Quran, appreciate the beautiful Arabic culture, or even just travel around the Middle East, then do consider subscribing. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so the Arabic language can be a real maze for learners. And from all my years studying Arabic, my discoveries I think can be split into 3 essential strategies. Let's start with number 1. The first strategy is to learn the forms and learn them really well. So if you're a complete beginner and you have no familiarity with the forms, I'll just run over what they are very briefly. So Arabic is an extremely rich and structured language, and one of the biggest benefits of it is its structure. So at the heart of Arabic, you have the root system, which is where you have 3 consonant letters, which typically represent a certain idea or concept. And then by arranging those letters in certain patterns or forms, you can generate different meanings from them. They're all based around the same idea or concept of that root's meaning. There's 10 primary forms in Arabic, and each of them represent a different aspect of an action's causality, reflexivity, or intensity. Learning the forms and learning them super well is literally a cheat code for Arabic. And I think lots of people don't really understand this. I've met many intermediate Arabic learners who are familiar with them, but haven't spent the time to nail them down properly. It's important to realize that these forms are essentially the foundation of the language. So much is built from these forms, and just by knowing them, it sets you up super well for anything you want to do with Arabic. You can look up words better, you'll also be able to guess many words that you come across if they're derived from one of the forms. And then lastly, it also allows you to almost broaden your vocabulary range instantly. Because when you see a new word or a new root, you can pretty much instantly extrapolate that to other forms, and you're immediately familiar with what it could be. Probably half the words you'll come across will be derived from the forms. So it's almost a complete no-brainer to just learn them, especially considering the fact that the amount of time and effort required to learn them is so little compared to the reward that you get. I mean, literally it's 1 evening or 2 evenings of concentrated focus. You'll learn the forms and then you'll never have to learn them again. And it's up to you how you learn them. If you like flashcards, you can learn them that way. The way I learned them personally was I just had a sheet and I read through them in 1 evening and tried to commit them to memory. And then the next day I revised them once and that was it. It's literally a few hours work, but the reward is absolutely enormous. This stuff comes up again and again and is so key to know every time you look at essentially any Arabic text. And that's one thing that I did quite early on in my Arabic journey, which was as soon as we were given the forms, I basically went and learned them all. I never had to look at them again. And that was so incredibly valuable to me, and I'd highly encourage you to do the same. Anyway, moving on to the second thing, which is to learn vocabulary purposefully and learn a lot. So everyone knows vocab is important, but I think with Arabic, it's a bit different. And I think a different strategy with Arabic actually pays off. And let me tell you why. Let's say you're an English speaker and you're learning French or Spanish or something like this. There's often many words you'll come across that you can take a pretty educated guess at what it means, because it might be similar to what it is in English. Or if you already know French and you're trying to learn Spanish, then there's so much overlap with the words between those languages that there's many words you'll just be able to understand that you haven't even necessarily learned. But I think with Arabic, it's very different. Most likely, if you're an English speaker, almost every word you come across in Arabic, you will not be able to guess what it means unless you actually know it. So if you take a step back and look at the way that people learn vocab, usually it's lesson by lesson, theme by theme. You might learn 30 to 50 words per theme, and you kind of go through it, and that's what I used to do, and it works pretty well for me. I used to learn every word that pretty much I came across, and it was fine, but there's one thing that I did that once I started learning vocab more purposefully, my level just skyrocketed. What I mean by purposefully is going through a large amount of words for every theme systematically. Like every topic, go through, and instead of learning 50 words, learn 100 words, learn 200 words. And the way that I did this was with a vocab book that I just came across by chance, but it must have had way over 10,000 words in there. And I would just read through it like that. I used to read page by page, and move through all the chapters of this book. But there's loads of things you can do. There's books like this, where if you're more of a visual learner, you can kind of go through topic by topic. Maybe if you've got more of a photographic memory, this also might help. Then there's things like flashcards. For example, I mean, you probably don't need this. There's loads of stuff online now. Or Anki if you prefer to use that. But I think in order to really get good at Arabic, you have to know a lot of vocabulary. Basically, after I started this strategy, there's so many words that came up which I just wouldn't have known otherwise, that I knew from literally just learning vocab for the sake of learning vocab. And I would seriously recommend anyone who's learning Arabic to do the same. The thing is, if you look at a language and how many words you need to know, or how many words are used in everyday language, I think it's something like 3,000, okay? If you times that by 10, you get 10,000. All everyday language and a significant amount more, right? Learning 10,000 words isn't as hard as it seems. People, when they learn languages, I think they vastly underestimate how long it takes to do it. It's not a quick process by any means. I mean, you can do it quickly, but really the thing is that you need to have a lot of consistency. 10,000 words is 10 words a day for just under 3 years. You can do that fairly reasonably within 30 minutes, assuming you're revising, some of what you've already learned too. I don't think that's a problem. 30 minutes a day for 3 years and you know 10,000 words in Arabic, that's a fairly large amount of words to be able to pretty much read most things you want and be able to know what's going on. And if there's a specific industry or something particular that you're interested in, then of course, instead of learning 200 words for that topic, jump in and learn 300. Once I started doing this, the benefits that I saw were just huge. So I can't recommend it enough. And particularly with Arabic, where you don't have the familiarity there and you can't guess as much, it's even more valuable in my opinion. Couple that with knowing the forms inside out, and I think that's a pretty good position. So 1, knowing the forms will help you be able to guess things. And then 2, knowing a huge amount of vocab will mean that there's so much that you can come across that you'll be able to understand. So moving on to the third thing that made a huge difference for me is immersion. And with today's technology, TV, music, movies, and whatever you're pretty much interested in, you can get all of that online. You can get shows from Egypt, you can get stuff from the Quran if that's what you're doing. You have access to all of this material from wherever you live. And I'm a big believer in maximum exposure to a language when you're learning it. Even if you don't understand what's going on, like let's say you're a complete beginner, right? I would still say that there's benefit in putting on like Arabic news on the TV and just listening, reading and watching. And although you might not see a difference the first time that you watch it, or the second time or third time or the 10th time, as this stuff goes into your brain, you'll be able to hear more, you'll understand more, you get an element of familiarity, and it gets you closer to that place where things in the language just start to kind of click. I can give you an example of one of the things that I used to do. When I was in Egypt, I started watching Egyptian series. In Egypt, there's a big thing around TV series in Ramadan, and they come out with all these new series and people watch them in the evening, so I started getting into them too. My Egyptian at the time, it was pretty good, but there was still so much that I couldn't understand. And this show had no subtitles, but I just watched it anyway. And I watched them, and from that, I think we're probably talking like 100 hours of just sitting watching Egyptian TV with no subtitles. And there were so many words that I learned. There were so many words that I then heard outside. And from that, there weren't just words that I heard in the series and then learned. It's phrases and ways of speaking that you get familiar with that you can then start using yourself. There's phrases that you pick up, which obviously, if you pick them up from Egyptian series, then it's completely idiomatic. And this is most likely how Egyptians are speaking. So you start to speak like them. You start to see things clicking in a way that they just didn't before. Genuinely, I think a lot of the benefit of exposing yourself to a language is actually kind of subconscious. So immerse yourself in it at the very least, and I think you'll find with time you'll also see huge benefits. So to summarize, Arabic is a vast language, but when you approach it knowing the forms really well, you take a purposeful approach to learning vocab, and you learn a lot, as well as immersing yourself consistently to get as much familiarity as you can. I think it becomes a lot more manageable. Anyway, I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.